Welcome to Season 2 of the Age of Motocross, and I'm your host, Jim Chamberlain. Today's episode is all about the tracks of the Maritimes, the loam, the sand, the rocky tracks, the double jumps, the triple jumps, the tabletops. Everything you can imagine in motocross is available here in the Maritimes. Sit back, listen to the sound of the rumble of the four-stroke and the high-pitched whine of the incredible two-strokes while I take you on a tour of maritime motocross. And don't forget, let's pin it. Welcome to the Age of Motocross. On today's show, what do Anne Murray and Arena Cross have in common? They're both from Spring Hill, Nova Scotia. Drivers, owners, and dads talk about the sport of motocross, arena cross, and the health of the industry in general. Practice, 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 practice. A section on the importance of practicing each and every day in all sorts of weather. How you get better. And what about keeping the bike happy? Lubrication for the nation. Lubricate your bike and your bike will be happy with you. We'll do a little section on that. How safe is the sport of arena cross? What's it like? Boards don't bend. Have a look at arena cross and have a look at what they're saying about the safety of this sport. And a new section we've added this year, words to live by. But first we're going Spring Hill, Nova Scotia, and we're going to see some indoor arena cross action.
Name's Derek Scott, head official for Atlantic Canada. We're here in Spring Hill, Nova Scotia today for the weekend arena cross annual Josh Damery event that we have every single year. The numbers are a little bit low this year, but the crowd was fantastic in supporting us last night, and tonight it should be even a bigger crowd. We got Brad Lockhart, his brother Ryan Lockhart, and mother and father putting on the event for us this weekend. It's fantastic. It's always a great time, and we got the hugest family environment you could ever imagine having anywhere in any sport in the world as far as I'm concerned. So yes, it should be a fantastic time. If you know, you get out and see one of these, you'll really enjoy yourself.
Well, I think you'll see some really close racing. It's good for the fans. It's not dusty. It's a nice night. You can buy cold beer. It's a good night out.
Real dedicated. If you can, you know, of course, like anything else, you can be either in at 50% or 110. We're into it 110% for sure. We're everywhere. It's a long nights in the garage. You know, come home from shift work and you're in the garage getting bikes ready to go for the next weekend. And you know, it's tough, but it's fun. We love it. We wouldn't change anything.
I think the track's really good. It's a fast track. It's not slow like last year's, but there's some big jumps, there's some small jumps, so it's pretty good.
Yeah, the track this weekend actually turned out really good. Great soil, which is always nice when you're building a track to start off with. Tons and tons of traction, which always makes it good. And the guys that we had building the track this time made great obstacles, kind of fun for everybody. And you know, it makes it challenging for the pro guys too. So basically how it turned out is you know, met my expectations, and looking forward to a great night.
Yeah, my son Ryan actually designed the track, and we have a couple friends from Halifax that they have tracks, and one guy's a landscaper, so that's what they actually built it. So yeah, we can always change it around. We would like to have a little more dirt, but it takes a lot of dirt to build a track like that. We were scared. A lot of times you go through the concrete. We didn't want that to happen, so we built the floor up pretty good. And the other thing, you have to make it safe for the younger kids. So there's a few big jumps. If you might have noticed, you can either do them, the pro guys will all do them, but the kids can't do them. So yeah, that's how you got to make it.
Yes, very much. We have Julian Green that works down in Halifax, has his own excavating company, as well as Kyle Ledwidge from Ledwidge Excavating down in Halifax. They come up and helped us build the track Wednesday and Thursday, and we had it open Thursday night. They do a phenomenal job, and the soil's absolutely perfect. You couldn't ask for better soil that came right from here in local Spring Hill.
Well, the biggest thing obviously outdoors is, you know, 5, 6, 7 times the size, a lot wider, a little bit more high speed. Indoors is a lot more tight, a little more jumpy, and just a lot tighter confinement.
Oh yeah, well, Damon Burbine lives half an hour from here, and Ryan and Brad grew up here. In fact, I'll tell you a neat story about Spring Hill. And 2 years ago, we had them all here, but from 1973 to 1983, I was the last one. For 10 years, every maritime motocross champion came from Spring Hill. That's pretty amazing. There was 5 of us over a 10-year period, and every champion for the whole Maritimes came from this little town.
We'd just like to thank the town of Spring Hill for allowing us to come here and do it. Hopefully we get a great crowd tonight. I mean, anybody that's going to come check it out is going to get a great show. I mean, the racing last night was amazing, so just want to thank those guys, and hopefully we can make it a success and come back next year.
What a series of interesting interviews, and you can see that the sport of motocross is in the blood and it doesn't ever leave. We're going to look at the need for speed. But how does the need for speed come about? Practice, practice, practice. If you want to get faster, you have to get on your bike each and every day. Practice. During season 1, we never once talked about really the importance of practice. We looked at the bike, we looked at different types of bike, how to get into sport and different types of sport. But as far as I'm concerned, the most important thing about motocross, any sport in general, is the ability to get out and practice whenever you can. Now today we're in the middle of July. It's 30 degrees Celsius, and everyone will say, oh, don't be the prima donna. What are you doing out there in the heat? When was the last time a race was stopped because it was 30 degrees Celsius? Now, I'm not going to spend 3 hours here practicing, but I certainly will spend a number of my days out here practicing in windy conditions, in rainy conditions. I don't get out too much in the rain, but I certainly want to know and remember what it feels like to be driving in wet conditions. I'll spend a little bit of time. But by far the most difficult part of it is racing when it's extremely warm like it is here today, 30 degrees Celsius. Now I'll spend a little bit of time practicing my corners and jumps and straight line abilities, but I'll spend most of my time working on fluids, filling myself up with water, whether it's warm, cold, or very hot like it is today. I'll fill myself with fluids. I'll start that 3 or 4 days before I get to an event and make sure that I'm well hydrated in the heat. And again, like I said, they're never going to cancel a race because it's too warm. So how well prepared are you to handle the heat of a 30-degree day? In a day like today, I'll get out for shorter motos. I might do 3 or 4 10-minute laps. I might practice certain things. One of the big things that I like going over on a regular basis is my corners. I'll go over and over a regular corner, work on my clutch engagement, where I want my clutch to engage. I'll work on braking lines, pinpointing a point where I should start putting on my brakes, locking them up solid. I'm not allowing the wheel to lock up, of course, but these are all things that I'll practice. There's other skills that I work at. I work at starts. Now, one of the drawbacks in the class that I've entered is there's a lot of larger bikes in my class. That's just the nature of the class. It's an age class. I'm in the 30 plus and the 40 plus age group, so many of the bikes are bigger. So I have to make sure that, although I'm a little bit down in horsepower, I want to make sure that I'm in mid-pack, if not in the top 6 or 7 each and every moto. So how do I have to get that? I have to develop laser reflexes in order to get to that first turn as quick as I can. How do you do that? You can't think about it. You need to practice. Practice, practice, practice. I was fortunate enough to read a book by Michael Jordan a number of years ago when they asked him why he practiced so hard. And he said, the games are easy. If you practice at full speed, when you get to the real game, the game itself will be almost in slow motion. Maybe that's why Michael Jordan became the greatest of all basketball players, arguably so. But he felt that it's important to give 100% in practice, not, in our case, not putting around the track and looking at the scenery, but going as hard as we can. Over the next few episodes, I'll show you some of the things that I work on and try to get more effective. Maybe I'm in my 50s, but I still enjoy the sport, and I always, always am looking to get better. Keep that left elbow pinned and that throttle wide open. I get tired just talking about practice. When we come back, the importance of keeping your bike happy. More than pre-mixed gas, you need to lube and lube every part of that motorcycle. Welcome back. In a previous episode, we talked about the importance of lubing your chain. That's only one part of your motorcycle. There's lots of other moving parts that need that little spray of your lubricant. Let's have a look. I hope you don't think that the only moving part on your bike that needs lubrication is your chain. There are many moving parts that you should be checking on a regular basis. Now, remember what I talked about with the chain in the last episode of Tech Talk? I said that after washing the bike, you need to disperse the water out of all lubricating joints, all places that need lubrication. And one of the biggest ways to do that is with the product called WD-40. Now, there are many other water dispersing agents, but WD-40 is probably the easiest to work with. It's probably the cheapest to work with, and it has a nice smell, so it's almost like you're putting on underarm deodorant or some type of eau de la toilette. So I take this and after a wash, and I make sure I squirt it on all the parts that need lubrication. And an example of that is your shifter. I don't know if you've ever been in a race where the shifter has stuck in because it's a moving shifter, but because dirt has built up in there, have you cleaned it out? So I always do a little squirt of WD-40 after the wash in order to disperse any water and such. What about your foot pegs? Have you cleaned out that general area of your foot pegs? Have you looked at the moving joints of your shifter, not of your shifter, but of your clutch and of your brake? Two other areas that should be looked at carefully. On the other side, you have your brake pedal and you have another foot peg. So once you've sprayed this in, There's another thing you can do to make sure that you've gotten all the guck out of there. Take a good contact cleaner, anything that cleans brakes or such, and squirt it in the joint. All the joints. So we're going right around the bike. We're going to squirt it on the other side as well. So I'm squirting it on the foot peg, getting all the guck out of there, and on the mechanism for the brake. So we're letting that drip dry at this point. So what we've done is we've dispersed water, then we've removed all of the guck with some sort of contact cleaner. Next, we're going to take a quality chain lube that is quite sticky, and we're going to spray it in those areas. So we give it a few seconds to drip dry, then we move around and squirt inside just a little bit. Little dab will do you. Some of your parents will remember that line. And make sure it gets in. Move it a little bit so some of the lubrication gets through. Move it up and down so the lubrication sinks in. We do that with every moving part that we can get to. Remember, disperse the water with WD-40 or something that disperses water. Clean it out with some type of contact cleaner. Let it drip dry. Get your chain lube out and go to it. Well, my bike's all lubricated. I have some sweet high-octane fuel in the tank, and I'm ready to go. Arena cross style, Spring Hill, Nova Scotia. Whoops, I didn't make it. I was lucky enough to send my producer down to do a little filming, but injuries are injuries. We bounce back later on in the season. But how safe is arena cross? Have a look at this growing sport.
The highlights of tonight, well, obviously it'd be the Josh Damery Award. Is a young motocrosser who unfortunately passed away in a car accident a few years back. And I mean, that for us as a community to lose one of our own, that'll be the highlight for the evening. But, you know, I mean, the pro event's always great. For laughs and giggles tonight, we're going to have a pit bike race, and that's all like parents and kids, and they're all on little, you know, beginner bikes, 50s and 70s, and we're oversized. Last night I was on a 70, and we just crash into each other, not to hurt each other, but we make a really good show, and that's going to be a good laugh for the thing. But the rest of it is probably going to be, you're going to see Damon Burbine, Ryan Lockhart, you know, his brother Brad, and Davey Frazier just kicking some butt out there.
Well, it's a motorsport. It is a dangerous sport. You know, hockey's a dangerous sport. If you wear all the right protective gear, if you use a little sense and take a few schools and a little instruction, you know, you look at all the injuries we have. Like I think, you know, last weekend had 280 entries, had 2 injuries maybe. So, and actually a lot of people think indoors racing is actually pretty dangerous, but you're only going in first and second gear. We went to 6 rounds in Quebec with like top professionals, very competitive, and I think I saw 1 person get hurt. So it's actually a little bit probably safer than outdoors.
It is, but you know what? We just had that conversation this morning. There was a guy in there watching Damon go, and he said, you know, you're not nervous of getting hurt? I said, honestly, Damon's come home hurt more on his scooter than he has on these dirt bikes. So, you know, it is dangerous, but driving your bicycle is dangerous too.
Well, it's time for a short break. I'm going to get myself a coffee, but I'll be right back. Stick around for Words to Live By. Welcome back. The philosophical side of motocross. Bet you didn't think there was. I call it words to live by. Who would have ever thought that Sylvester Stallone could provide a quotable quote that is used to inspire people? In one of the Rocky movies, I'm not sure if it's 4 or 5 or 6, but we know the franchise runs forever, Rocky said an interesting line. He said, "Nothing will hit harder than life." I think we all know that. Nothing hits harder than life. It's not that you're not or ever will not get hit, because you will get hit by life. Life will push you down. It's how often and how quickly you get back up. Now, we're talking about motocross. How do these things tie in together? When was the last time you had a bad race? When I had a bad race, when I'm coming up and learning about the sport, all the way home I balked. I groaned and growled. I pointed my finger at other people. It's his fault. He was in my way. I couldn't do this because he was cutting me off. I always pointed at other people. Well, that's a life lesson that I learned from motocross. I need to stop pointing at others. I need to understand that I've been hit, that I've been knocked down. I lost a race. The bike broke down. It's going to cost me some money to fix. But how am I going to handle that? That's a life lesson that you need to take into life. When your bike breaks down, runs out of gas, when you fall in a corner in the lead, when you can't get any better than last place, are you giving up? In life, we get knocked down. There are many people just huddle in the corner and don't stand back up with whatever life throws at you. And we're not saying that life won't throw tough things at you. When's the last time you did a cartwheel down the track with your motorcycle? I know I've done it many of times, and after a while, I learned to get back up. That doesn't mean you have a broken shoulder. I expect you to pop it back into place and jump on your bike. What I mean by getting back up is put it behind you. You had a bad moto. You got passed in the last lap. You fell down with 1 lap to go. Your bike broke down. Put it behind you. Think of that as a life lesson, because there's going to be stuff in life that's going to knock you off your motorcycle. It's going to knock you out of something, knock you down, hold you back. What are you going to do? Motocross has taught me tomorrow's a new day. The sun comes out tomorrow, and how I handle it will determine what my future is. Motocross knocks me down, I stand back up and come out for the next moto fighting again. I've done that for 38 years. Am I a national champion? Of course not. But I know when I'm done with my racing, at each and every moto, when I come off the track, I analyze my day. There's been good and bad points of it. But I know that no matter what happens, I gave my 100%. They always say 110, 120%, but I gave it my all. So I can go home at the end of the day and say, you know what? I had a lot of obstacles in my way, but I refused to point my finger at anybody or anything. And what I choose to do instead is to say, I got knocked down, figuratively, but I stood back up, I finished my moto, I worked hard, and I'm working about how I'm going to get faster and looking at the next moto in 2 weeks' time. A lesson I learned in biking that I took through all of my life. And that's a wrap. I'm your host, Jim Chamberlain. We hope to see you again next week. And don't forget those immortal words, just pin it.